And of course, we're still coming to you live from the SABC special broadcast studio here at the Results Operations Center. 2 million of the votes already having been counted. That is a significant number. Of course, we're going to be speaking a little bit later on to the CSIR. They're in partnership with SABC News over here, bringing us their close to near perfection predictions. Of course, they've got incredibly sophisticated models that we're going to be taking a look at a little bit later on. But on the early count, 2 million votes, Prof Booysen, the ANC sitting on 43%, the Democratic Alliance sitting there on just under 25%, and the EFF sitting at the moment just under 9%. As far as the race goes, this is how 2019 turned out, but the big caveat here is that the ANC is far below the majority, right? And of course, in provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, the MK party currently leading, comfortably so.
Yes.
And of course, in Gauteng, the ANC sitting well below their comfort zone of 50%. It really seems like there's a big swing in the tide here.
I think that we see a massive change in South African politics and party politics, electoral politics unfolding right on the board behind us. And whereas there can be variations, we also know in the CSIR people will talk about the exact aspects of their model, but we know that the ANC is likely to stabilize in the early 40s. And that will be totally counter everything the ANC has tried to make South Africa
has them
believe.
At around what, 41%?
42,
just about?
42, yes. And it means the ANC has not been accurate in its projections as to how well the recent weeks of its campaign has been working.
Helen Zille just got onto the floor. She's arrived for the Democratic Alliance. Gwede Mantashe is roaming around on the floor. When these big heavyweights of these parties come out, it means negotiations are beginning, right? And of course, there is the question around whether we have good faith negotiators in these parties. Are there indeed good faith? The DA has the big contradiction about the DA, for instance, is them saying, we're going with this multi-party charter thing, but if push comes to shove, we'll take the ANC over the line because we believe ANC with Cyril Ramaphosa is more stable than the instability of a minority government where no one knows where it's going. The negotiations have started. Are they at this stage in good faith?
It's so difficult to say because yes, parties are looking out for their own interests, are looking for to what extent they can bring other parties to back their campaigns, their promises, etc. But I think all the parties are going to realize that they need that good faith and they'd better find it very quickly because they need one another. ANC will need other parties and possibly a party like the DA in order to get a majority to keep itself in government and have a chance for some of its people to be in senior executive positions, for some of its policies to be retained. That is the only way to do it at this stage.
The ANC right now, if the trend holds, the ANC sitting at 43%, the EFF sitting at then nearly 9%. If the trend holds, the two of them can get just over the 50% mark. That adds up to about 51% at the moment, right?
Yes.
The question is, does the ANC have the wherewithal to be able to negotiate with Julius Malema and get him? And of course, Julius Malema's requirements every time seem to be very normative. They're very principled. We don't want this, we want this. We want your support on this particular legislative program and not that legislative program. We want this particular person to not be in that position. There's a lot of that sort of normative framework in terms of how they go about their coalition negotiation. Does the ANC have the wherewithal to win over the EFF to get them across the line?
If I have to go by research interviews that I've done myself and spoken to many party political leaders across the spectrum, I do not believe the ANC has got the will to go in with the EFF. They consider their fingers have been burnt in some of the local government coalitions, and I believe they regard the EFF as too erratic, uneven in its policy and governance and position demands, that they think they need something, whether they're going to find it or find it in a DA, one doesn't know, whether they're going to find more consistency. They will have to see who is amenable to that kind of negotiations. But the ANC at this stage, I don't think has got the appetite for a coalition either with the EFF or with the MK party.
Then where do they find that 7% that takes them over the line if this result holds till the end?
Either, I would say, in an alliance with the DA or in an alliance with a multi-party charter or in something that is more inclusive in nature and could have the character of a government of national
Alliance
unity.
over, right?
Sorry?
They could win the Patriotic Alliance over. They're sitting on a projected 4% at the moment.
I wouldn't be surprised if they go somewhat down, but they are still going to be doing well and in the ranks of the small parties. I don't think they will be a serious kingmaker unless the DA has to recruit them as a kingmaker in the Western Cape.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. Again, that CSIR model, we're going to look at it a bit later, but they predict the Patriotic Alliance to stabilize it in the 2 to 3% margin, which is lower than their 4% plus that they're sitting at the moment. 2% matters when the margins are this thin. Do you see the Patriotic Alliance giving their 2% support to the ANC?
You know, they could. We know from local government coalition experience that the PA is very flexible, opportunistic in whom they go into coalitions with. So they could very well offer it, but in own right, the 2% won't make much of a difference to getting the ANC into government. Yeah.
And of course, the question is, all these other really smaller parties, they seem to be quite strongly anti-ANC at the moment themselves. Let's talk about this for the last minute we have. Again, if this result holds, strong possibility that Cyril Ramaphosa does not return as president of the country next week, if this result holds till the end as it is. Part of the difficulty of change is the inability of humans to be able to conceptualize and imagine a different future, a different outcome, because we've been so used to an ANC-led government for so long, it's difficult to imagine what the country looks like outside of the ANC, beyond the ANC. Talk us through that imagination of building what is ultimately South Africa democracy 2.0.
Yes, you know, I believe the ANC will still be in government. It is at least about twice as big as the biggest second party, and that is the DA. So it will be hard to imagine a government without the ANC there, but it will have to be a moderated ANC, one that sells itself to coalition partners, one that governs in coalition with those partners, and that would then also be valid for the election of the president. Within the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa is not being challenged. They know he faults, hesitant about many decision-making issues, all of these included. He is still by far the strongest leader in the ANC. He's accepted as a leader in this ANC that is getting around 42% of the vote. So I would be surprised if party negotiations does not exactly support to get him re-elected as president.
Absolutely. Dr. Susan Booysen, thank you so much for your time.